Good morning from the sports desk. It is a huge day. Potentially nothing will happen that is expected to, but it is a huge day nonetheless. Max Verstappen will be starting from 8th spot on the grid after being forced to abort his final 2 qualifying laps. This is at the Singapore Grand Prix. The 2021 champion lashing out at his Red Bull teammates' late decision to put him in the pits. Now, we'll be looking into that and more as we look ahead to today's race, of course, happening in Singapore. In the company, of course, with me is our resident analyst. It's Lufefe Mayekiso from Motozar TV, and of course our racing champion Bashobonke Sipuka. Now we usually have each men alternating, but because today we could potentially see Max Verstappen crown the champion, we have to get both of them coming in and sharing their knowledge and expertise with us. A very good morning to you, gentlemen, to you, Lufefe, and to Chops. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me this morning. So let's just start with the obvious question. Will we have a champion today, Lufefe?
It's possible, but improbable, in my opinion. Because what needs to happen is Charles Leclerc needs to finish 9th or worse, and Sergio Perez needs to finish 4th or worse, and they are actually on the front grid, front row of the grid.
They're sitting right up there and could potentially win the race. Chops, yes. The permutations, as Fluffy is saying, it's improbable, but we know that a Red Bull car is demonic in its speed, and we know that he's going to start from 8th and potentially win the race, will Max Verstappen. But can the other factors actually, is it realistic for them to happen? Can Charles Leclerc actually crash out of the race? Because that's probably what he has to do.
Well, you can't rule Ferrari from crashing out of the race because their strategist is not really on top of their game. But having said that, I don't think there's a chance that Max Verstappen can win this race. I think Leclerc at the moment is really switched on, and as Lufefe says, he's got to finish 9th for Verstappen to be crowned as champion. So if Verstappen finishes first and Leclerc finishes in the podium, we'll live to see another day.
Lufefe, of course, we've seen probably his best season so far. This is Charles Leclerc that I speak of. He's got his 9th pole, but he doesn't have the race wins to match the pole positions. I mean, you would expect, at least if you had a Sir Lewis Hamilton in that Ferrari, you would have 9 poles and 9 victories. I mean, just talk to us about what it is he's done this season. And I mean, already Chops has said that he's been led down by the strategy, by the team behind, but what could he have done different in those pole positions that he didn't convert?
Well, yesterday, I heard him go against what the team was recommending, and he was like, can we pit for slicks? So I think he hasn't done that enough this year. He's always let the team make the decisions for him in terms of strategy. So it's nice to see that now he's taking the bull by the horns, because obviously he's the one driving the car, which I think he's the one in the most favorable position to make a call on whether to pit now or later or whatever the case may be.
Chops, has the 2022 Formula One season lived up to the hype Formula One fans and enthusiasts and content creators like Fluffy have created? Because, Drive to Survive has done its part in creating the hype, but Formula One fans and even newcomers of Formula One fans have really created a hype about this season, especially after what happened last year. But has it lived up to the billing?
I think it has in many ways than one, primarily because you've got a team that's got a lot of heritage and a lot of history behind it, which is Ferrari at the moment, which is really back in the game, but not being able to deliver to what it's supposed to be. But you had Red Bull, who were previous championship winners and contenders last year, who are really up their game and they're forced to be reckoned with. So the challenge you have here at Ferrari is that their package is very strong, but it tends to have a significant impact on the tires. And this is what these guys suffer from towards the end of the race. And the Red Bull is fairly a neutral car, but what we can expect to happen on this particular circuit is that because it's a street circuit, it sort of equalizes or neutralizes things. There's not so long straight lines with like a conventional circuit. So that performance barrier sort of goes away in some way or some form. Strength, skill, stamina in this particular circuit is required.
There's controversy looming. The matter of the cost cap. Two teams said to have exceeded it in 2021. I mean, we can talk about the burning of the rubber on the tracks itself, but there's always the matter now, especially with the focus coming from Michael Massey, the drama from last year. Fans are now, paying more attention to what happens in boardrooms, behind the scenes. Talk to us about that and what can we actually expect from it.
Okay, well, the report is coming out of the assessment done by the FIA, because obviously last year they introduced the cost cap to try and level the playing fields, where no team is allowed to spend more than $145 million in developing the car per season, excluding certain aspects like driver salaries or whatever. So it has been alleged this week that there are two teams, apparently Red Bull and Aston Martin, who have exceeded that cost cap. And with Red Bull, this year they actually have the lightest car. So apparently they developed a lightweight chassis in their car, which obviously gives them advantage, because the lighter your car is, the faster you can go. So there's a war of words between Toto Wolff and Christian Horner about that, with Christian Horner disputing everything that has been said. And he said he's wondering how these rumors came out, because he hasn't heard anything about any other team's report on the assessment.
Chops, a lot of people feel like money has ruined sport. You look at the Indian Premier League and what it offers in cricket. You look at football with, the introduction of what people call Arab money. Now you're looking at Formula One with this matter. Financial fair play rules, I'm going to use that football term. Financial fair play rules, to some extent, allow for the underdogs to still be able to take part in the game. It doesn't just essentially kick them out and you've only got three teams that have got all the money that you see in South Africa, in fact. Chiefs, Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns, they have all the money and they are the ones that keep dominating. But also, money has made sport interesting, some might say, to say that if it wasn't, we'd be playing, you'd get a Premier League that has got boring players that would want to stay in their own countries, because what's the point of coming to clubs that do not have the money to pay us, right? So where do you sit with that? And I'm going to bring it back to a Formula One point of view. Capping the cost, capping teams from spending money as they want to and as they can, some could say it's killing the sport.
Well, indeed. But you know what will happen is that people tend to forget that the latest technology that we have in cars today, really, the platform for that comes through from Formula One. The research and development that goes into Formula One is huge. But even if you take that cap and kept all the teams to the same amount of structure, remember, they've got huge capital brains behind the development of these cars to what they become. So whether you cap it, you will still find that the top teams will still prevail at the end of it all. And unfortunately, Formula One is a money sport. I mean, I remember in the era of Michael Schumacher, these guys used to spend $1 billion just to find a second. So that does tell you a lot of what goes into Formula One. I mean, these are sort of fighter cars, if you could relate it to fighter jets, because some of the components on these cars are components that you find in fighter jets.
We usually talk about Sir Lewis Hamilton first. He's usually the headline. He's the main act. He's, when you go to a concert, he's the one that you wait to, he's going to come on last on the stage.
Showstopper.
Exactly. And he's always been. He's got 7 titles to his name. He's a record-equaling world champion. Somebody that still has it in him to win number 8, maybe even number 9, because he's just that super talented. But the conversation around Sir Lewis Hamilton, he's not just a guy that features on page 6 on the newspaper, And it's understandable, because Mercedes has been performing the way it has. He does not have a race win. But he's showing good form, and he usually shows good form second half of the season. Does he still have a chance of winning a race? Does he still have a chance of breaking, what could potentially be a blemish on his record?
Well, looking at his performance this weekend, I mean, I watched all the free practice sessions. He was quickest on Friday in FP1.
Yeah.
Then in FP2, he had done the quickest first 2 sectors, but aborted the lap, similar to Max yesterday when he was going for his pole. So in FP3, it was drenched, it was rained out, so you couldn't really get a reflection. So yesterday, I was feeling confident that he could actually secure pole, and he only missed it by 0.05 of a second. because he's starting third today behind Perez and Leclerc. I mean, it's not easy to overtake, as Chops has already alluded to, in Singapore, but strategy can come in.
And help.
So I think today he's got a good chance of a win.
Right, guys, it's obviously when you're having fun, time does go by quickly. So I'm going to put your guys' heads on the block. I'm going to ask you this particular question. Who's winning the Singapore Grand Prix?
Let Chops go first.
Chops? Who's winning the Singapore Grand Prix?
Look, it's going to be a very tricky one. I predicted that if Max was on pole, he would win it, and Leclerc would be second, and Lewis Hamilton would be third. But I can tell you this much: I think Lewis is in a chance of finishing in the podium, and I think Leclerc this time, because he's on pole, his team probably have sharpened the pencil in one way or the other, and we can give credit to him. I think he's going to take it this time.
Leclerc?
Provided he doesn't put it into the wall.
Of course. Leclerc, what do you think, Fluffy?
Well, my Super Brew picks, I went for Max for the win, Charles second, and Lewis third. I'll go for Lewis to win, Charles second, and Max third.
All right, those are the predictions that you guys have heard from the two gentlemen who know everything there is to know and should know about Formula One. Bashobonke Sipuka, of course, racing champion, South African racing champion. He's joining us. Thank you very much for joining us from Eklabecha. And of course, our resident analyst who's always in studio with us, that is Lufefe Mayekiso, of course, from Motozar TV. Of course, the Singapore Grand Prix is happening this afternoon. It is a night race usually, but it's getting underway at 2 o'clock South African time this afternoon. So you do want to catch it and see whether or not those predictions are right. Bashobonke says Charles Leclerc, and of course, Fluffy Lufefe Mayekiso is saying it's going to be Sir Lewis Hamilton. I'm not going to lie. I'm a Ham fan. I'm an LH44 fan, so I'm really hoping that he gets his first win of the season. But that is where we're leaving it from the sports desk for now, of course.